Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 7 is here, having debuted alongside the Z Fold 7 and the Z Flip 7 FE at Samsung's latest Galaxy Unpacked showcase. At first glance, this is a massive upgrade over the Galaxy Z Flip 6, but that doesn't mean it's a perfect phone. So, in this video, we'll be breaking down the best and worst parts of the Galaxy Z Flip 7 and bringing you an overall verdict on its value for money and place in the wider foldable market. We've complained about the Galaxy Z Flip cover screen for years, but Samsung has finally made the flex window a genuinely usable feature in the Z Flip 7. For starters, it now measures 4.1 inches, up from a paltry 3.4 inches on the Z Flip 6, and the refresh rate has also been doubled from 60Hz to 120Hz. The bezels too are now much slimmer than before, meaning the cover display takes up every possible inch of the phone's front panel, giving you plenty of room to work with apps and widgets. Otherwise, the Z Flip 7 is a pretty standard 2025 Galaxy phone. It has flat sides and the power and volume buttons on the right, while the volume key acts as an effective fingerprint scanner, though it is a bit more recessed than the power button on other Galaxy phones. We've got the blue shadow model here, and personally I think it's one of the nicest Galaxy colours ever. But be warned, the glass on the Z Flip 7 is pretty prone to scuffs and scratches, so you want to be careful when keeping the phone in your pocket or bag alongside your keys. You do, however, get an IP48 water resistance rating, which is the standard for flip phones in 2025. We've talked about how much we love that new, larger cover display, but the Z Flip 7's inner display has also been upgraded this year. It's now a 6.9-inch AMOLED panel, up from 6.7 inches on the Z Flip 6, and it gets bright enough to remain usable even in harsh outdoor sunlight. Oh, and you don't have to worry about the crease. It's pretty much invisible when you're using the Z Flip 7 in any orientation, and so far, it hasn't bothered us when swiping across the screen. After all these years, it still feels like magic to fold a piece of glass in half, and the Z Flip 7 will definitely shock friends who haven't seen a flip foldable in person before. Samsung phones are known for offering great customization options, and that continues to be true with the Z Flip 7. If you're familiar with recent versions of One UI on foldables, you'll find lots to like here, but the Z Flip 7 can feel a little complex if you're coming to Samsung as a newbie. This phone features myriad settings, pop-up features, and extra steps required to make all of its customization options work, which can be testing for those with limited patience. Take the cover display, for example. On the Motorola Razr, when you're using an app and you close the phone, the app simply shows up on the cover display. Not so for the Z Flip 7. Samsung's new Flex window is visually stunning, but to use an app on the front screen, you'll have to find the setting that enables that function. Confusingly, this setting isn't in the cover display settings menu. It's actually in a menu called Advanced Settings and then Labs, which is a pretty frightening way to hide a crucial feature. Once you find Labs, you can enable a few pre-selected cover display apps like Maps, Messages, and Netflix, but for everything else, you'll need to use a dedicated widget called Multistar, which demands that you open up the phone to add the cover apps you want. We won't dwell on this issue, but it does encapsulate Samsung's strange software philosophy. The Z Flip 7 has lots of great features, and they all work. Somehow. Finding those features and making them work is the tricky part, and you'll have to be prepared to jump through some hoops to customize the phone to your heart's content. On the AI front, the Flip 7 supports a version of Gemini Live that's fully customized for the cover screen, and you can also use features like Now Brief and the Now Bar if you're committed to letting AI enhance your daily routine. The Z Flip 7 uses a 50-megapixel wide lens, a 12-megapixel ultra-wide lens, and a 10-megapixel selfie camera, which is the same 3-camera offering as you'll find on last year's Flip 6. On paper, that sounds disappointing, but the Flip 7 still takes great pictures across the board. Images taken with Samsung cameras usually pop with bright colors and a highly sharpened look. But we've noticed that on the last couple of phones, especially this one and the S25 Edge, Samsung has been toning down its artificial look in favor of a more natural, arguably iPhone-like photography style, which we're all for. That said, if you do prefer Samsung's older style, you can opt for one of Samsung's specialized photography modes. Speaking of modes, Samsung's portrait mode is still among the best on any smartphone, and food mode is by far the best mode of its kind. The Z Flip 7 also impresses on the AI editing front. When you cut an unwanted person or object out of your photo, the phone does a perfect job of filling in the gaps, which can't be said for every flagship smartphone on the market right now. Of course, the Z Flip 7's coolest camera trick is the ability to use the cover display as your viewfinder for photos. You can take selfies at the full 50-megapixel resolution when you point the main camera at yourself and use the cover display, and you can also set the phone in an interesting position and take shots with voice commands or by signaling the camera with a wave. Our only real complaint is the lack of any real zoom lens. Digital zoom is fine, but if you often take photos from far away, you might lament the lack of a telephoto camera on the Z Flip 7. Here's hoping Samsung swaps out the ultra-wide for a zoom camera on next year's Galaxy Z Flip 8. The Galaxy Z Flip 7 uses Samsung's own Exynos 2500 chipset, and in our real-world tests, it performed pretty well. We put the phone through a variety of complex tasks, including running 2 apps with one at the top and one at the bottom of the inner screen, and plugging the Flip 7 into a monitor for the full Samsung DeX treatment. DeX in particular is a super useful feature if you're tired of logging in and out of your accounts on a laptop, and we're happy to see that Samsung added DeX support for the Flip 7 after the feature's absence from the Z Flip 6. In benchmark tests, it's clear that the Exynos 2500 lags behind the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Elite, and while most users won't necessarily encounter a problem with the Exynos, Snapdragon using foldables are objectively more power efficient devices, which we'll touch on in the next section. Onto the battery, and the Galaxy Z Flip 7 routinely lasted for a full day in our testing, unless we were heavily editing photos or playing power-hungry games. For the most part, you'll only need to charge it before bedtime, and we suspect that the phone will last even longer if you use the cover display more than the inner display. That said, the Flip 7 isn't a battery life champion compared to other folding phones, nor even a major upgrade over its predecessor. Sure, it has a battery that's 300 mAh larger than the cell in the Flip 6, but it only delivers about 90 minutes more runtime in our rundown tests. The Motorola Razr Ultra, by comparison, uses the Snapdragon 8 Elite chipset, has a battery that's 400 mAh larger than the Flip 7's, but in our tests it lasted almost 6.5 hours longer than the Samsung phone. The Z Flip 7 died in just under 12.5 hours, while the Razr Ultra lasted almost 19 hours. We have to assume that the Snapdragon chipset is sipping power compared to Samsung's Exynos, and that's why the Razr lasts so much longer with only a slightly larger battery. Motorola's displays are just as bright and actually pack more pixels, so if it isn't the screen that's saving electricity, it must be the chipset. As for how the Galaxy Z Flip 7 compares to last year's Z Flip 6, there's really no contest. This is a bigger, slimmer, and more powerful phone that rivals the latest Motorola Razr on multiple fronts. Yes, the software can be a bit fiddly at times, but Samsung is still the only manufacturer offering this level of customization. And if you're willing to play around, the Flip 7 is arguably a more fun and usable device than its big brother, the Galaxy Z Fold 7. It's still not the most powerful phone around, and if you're looking for serious zoom hardware, you'll need to go for the Fold or indeed the Motorola. That said, there's a level of polish to the Z Flip 7 that's hard to pin down, and with Samsung committing a market-leading 7 years of Android updates and security patches to its latest Flip Foldable, it's likely to remain feeling fresh for many years to come. Are you tempted by the Galaxy Z Flip 7? Let us know in the comments.